Well, welcome to the edition of Motor Cars Enthusiasts. Right off the bat on today's show, you may remember this particular machine, Lincoln building this coach door edition version of the Continental. This was basically a machine still built in Michigan, but actually shipped over to Boston for this conversion. 6 inches into the wheelbase were added along with this quote-unquote suicide doors on both sides. Now, Lincoln only built 80 of these things in initial offering for $150,000 a pop and sold out in just 48 hours time, which is hugely impressive. This time around, in their 2-year cycle, they're going to build 150 of these for the year of 2020, and also at the same $150,000 price tag. It's going to be real interesting to see just how fast these things actually sell out this go round. It's a heck of a coup when it comes to folks over at Lincoln, because you know what? This lops on nearly $100,000 over the standard price tag of the Continental. Next up on the list, well, we talked about the Chevrolet Corvette C8. It isn't even in dealer showrooms, but they're already showing off the drop-top version of this particular machine. Now, it isn't a removable target top or a soft fabric top. It's actually a hard tin-top retractable roof that can retract in just 16 seconds time and speeds upwards of 30 miles an hour, and that's up or down. I think the most interesting thing in this particular machine is they did have to add a fair amount of weight, which I found kind of interesting. Mainly because General Motors knew they were going to build a convertible out of this thing, so why wasn't it built in the initial car to actually make it strong enough? Now, the trick is, the Corvette C8 is still the bargain of the century, and when you compare it to other mid-engine supercars, most of them kind of have that, carbon monocoque, which is kind of the reason why they don't need reinforcement when it comes to this. So, 77 pounds of weight is still pretty doggone impressive, is all they had to lop on. The interesting thing is apparently it affected the suspension settings so well that General Motors actually had to redo the damper settings and the spring rates for this particular vehicle to adapt it to make it less like the coupe as far as handling and ride quality is concerned. Now, the trick is they're going to sell a hell out of these things as well, as it's still the bargain basement price of the century, just $7,500 over the standard coupe version with a starting price of $67,495 US dollars. This vehicle will be available in General Motors showrooms coming up in the year of 2020. And also, a little surprise when it came to the convertible version, they showed off the brand new race version, the GT3 version of the C8 Corvette, which will make its official debut at the 24 Hours of Daytona in the first part of January of 2020. Now, I have to say, the most interesting thing about the new C8R is the fact that it looks so much like the standard version of the car. Of course, it's a little bit more aggressive, but usually GT3 cars look violently more aggressive, and this thing looks way more closer to the standard version. It's going to be very interesting to see this thing in action in its first fight in anger. And it is kind of interesting, too, that this silver livery, which will be on one of the cars, the other car is going to have that standard old yellow and black, just like it's been for a long time. So it'll be interesting to see just how exactly well these things debut in Daytona. And obviously, we don't have any real performance, because performance numbers for these particular cars don't mean anything, because it is a race car. And last up on the list, speaking of race cars, at least Powerplant options, Hennessy showing off the Fury engine, which is going to be the engine of choice for the brand new F5. This is a pretty interesting power plant. It's an LS-based power plant that they've actually lopped off nearly a liter of displacement over the last supercar that they actually built, which is 7.6 liters in displacement. This one only having 6.6 liters of twin turbocharged power. Those twin turbochargers actually spooling up 23 psi of boost inside of this particular machine. Now, they've done an extensive amount of work, including a completely bespoke intake for this particular machine, along with the piping for the turbochargers itself, trying to keep that interior dense charge of the airflow inside of the engine as low as possible to create the most amount of power as possible. Now, Hennessy claimed this thing was going to be making close to 1,600 horsepower. Well, they kind of blew that out of the water. This thing makes an eye-watering 1,817 horsepower and 1,193 pounds-feet of torque. Along with that lower displacement, and it did actually bump it up in RPM wise, getting 8,200 RPMs of redline power. Now here's the trick. The F5, they're only going to build 25 of these. They've already sold at least half of these things so far, and I'm assuming, coming down from what this power is going to be, I'm assuming the rest of them will sell out quite quickly. Starting price of the new F5 is going to be $1.6 million, but if it isn't just as special as it is, just in 25 of them being built, there is over $600,000 worth of options you can lop onto these things, including a lot of very bespoke type equipment. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the F5 and the Fury are actually going to carry on in this machine. Apparently under 3,000 pounds. They're still claiming it's going to be able to go over 300 miles an hour. So we'll definitely keep you in tune to more of what we hear about this particular machine. And that's all there was that I thought was worth talking about for this edition of Motor Cars Enthusiast. Don't forget to like us over on the Facebook page. Links down in the show notes. Also, if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, you can do so at any time. Get the first dibs on the brand new shows as soon as they come out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again real soon.